Okay, so that first tier of awareness, we're going to look at a couple different ways that your lifestyle or the way that you're currently moving can be affecting foot pain. The first and most obvious is what type of shoe you're wearing. So the biggest thing is the toe box. So if you're wearing tight shoes, Converse is one that comes to mind as typically having a narrow toe box, right? Like if this is your foot and the bones of your feet want to be spread. And if you're pushing them and squeezing them into a shoe, then there's not space between those bones. That's where the nerves come out for your toes. And so the nerves are getting pinched, the joints are getting inflamed because they're rubbing against each other, and your foot is getting shoved into a shoe that's not good. So you may want to look at your shoes. This also has to deal with arch support, cushioning. All of those things can be affecting how your foot feels. The next one would be sitting patterns. And a lot of times we sit in certain ways. And so if I show you here, like if I'm sitting cross-legged, especially like this, right? This foot is free, but this foot is being compressed by the weight of my leg. And if I'm someone that always sits in this position, or I find myself being cross-legged, then that foot is constantly, just like being in a shoe, it's being compressed. Another one is, if you kind of sit like this a lot, I'm smashing that foot that way. So be aware of your sitting patterns and how you may be putting pressure on your foot in an asymmetrical way. The next would be standing patterns. So here is looking at how you're standing. Are you standing onto one hip more than the other? So one foot is having to take the pressure. A lot of mothers have to deal with this when they're holding a kid on one hip. That's gonna put a lot of pressure through that hip and that foot. The other one is kind of how your feet are sitting in a standing position. So here, I have an even distribution of my feet. If I'm not paying attention, my feet might collapse in. And that maybe is subtle to see. Move it in a little bit. Let's go down here. Here we go. So this is good even foot position. That's where my arches are collapsed. And you can see that the ankles are pulling in. And I can feel that the outer edge or the inner edge of my foot is in contact with the ground. I don't have a lot of pressure through the outside of this pinky toe. And my glutes are not active. When I squeeze my glutes, you can't see me squeezing my glutes, but as I squeeze my glutes, those feet and arches lift up. So there is a connection between how your glutes are holding yourself up during standing and what your feet are doing. The last thing to mention here is that just the concept of the foot tripod or maintaining good contact. You want to make a tripod from the big toe knuckle to the little toe knuckle to the heel. And that is the even footing that you want to maintain. And so if people are pronated, then that means that they put way too much weight through the big toe of their foot. If they're supinating, they put way too much weight on the outside of their foot. And then, I can't think of people that really just put their weight too much in their heels, but it's thinking about having even weight between those 3 points: big toe, little toe, and heel. That's gonna make a big difference in how you're standing and sitting. And this starts to be just awareness.